And we're in plane geometry. And this is where we've been with quadrilaterals. So the last one that we were doing is a trapezoid. So the trapezoid is a four-sided flat shape with straight sides that has a pair of opposite sides parallel. So what they're showing is that this top and this bottom, which it could be flipped around in different positions, just like a triangle, those are the ones that are parallel. And then they have the other two sides to make it a quadrilateral. This one is not equal at all. And now you see this one that has the two lines in the angle. That's an isosceles trapezoid, meaning that the two sides on the left and on the right, those are equal. So it's saying a trapezoid has a pair of parallel sides, which is the two bases. An isosceles trapezoid is one that has equal angles from a parallel side. And trapezium is a word that is used in the UK. So for this website, like we said, sometimes you'll see the language that is international, but normally on United States tests, it's gonna say trapezoid. So you don't have to worry about learning another word. This is the thing that you might wanna draw, talking about the trapezoid. So what you're thinking again is that because the sides are slanted, like the triangle, you're really thinking about a base and you're thinking about the altitude or the height. You don't want to go by the side length if it is labeled as extra information, because you can see this length is going to be different from this length, and that's going to be different from the whole height. So what you're really looking for when you're thinking about the formula is, what is the one base? What is the second base? Let me add those two up. I'm going to divide by 2 and then multiply times the height. So sometimes you do see this. Let me see another one. So sometimes you see the formula like a little bit different from the one that's on Math is Fun. Like maybe like this one, right? So on Math is Fun, it's saying divide by 2, but this one looks a little bit different. It's saying 1/2 times the height times A plus B. That's a way that you can see it on your test or on another website. Also this one, I don't know if you can see this one. It's a little blurry, but this is the way I think that they were listing it in the task book. It would say 1/2 times base, or B with a little 1 plus B with a little 2, and then times the height. So it's because it's multiplication, you can see it could be rearranged. So sometimes I've seen it 1/2 times the height times base 1 plus base 2. On Math is Fun, they're just saying A and a B. They're not necessarily saying base 1 and base 2. But because it could be flipped all around, they're calling these two things bases, kind of like the triangle. So I'm saying whichever formula you like the most, that's the one you want to use. And I have to take a look and see what it looks like in Aztec. So I'm gonna watch that section today because I'm not sure how they give the formula. But in Math is Fun, they're saying this: add up the two bases, divide by 2, and multiply times the height. That's essentially the same as one like this, where you're saying 1/2 the height times the base, or the two bases A and B. So what you want to do is look at the numbers again, because it might be easier to do half of the height really quickly. Like maybe in this one, the height is 5 inches. So maybe you just want to say, okay, it's 2.5. Or if you want to say, I'd rather multiply by 5, let me do 25 plus 15, and then take half of that, if that's making sense, right? So if you're looking at the numbers, whichever way is easier, as you're trying to remember to use as much mental math as you can, it might be easier for you to say 15 and 25 is 40, right? And then say half of that is 20 times 5. That might be better than saying 2.5 if it's hard for you to multiply by a percentage. So all you're doing is thinking about which way you want to see the formula. By the time you look at Khan Academy and Aztec and Math is Fun, but this is the way they're giving it in Math is Fun. Add up the two bases, which is in this formula, A plus B, and then divide by 2, multiply times the height. So here is this example. A trapezoid's two bases are 6 meters and 4 meters, and it's 3 meters high. What is its area? So you're saying 6 plus 4 is 10, divided by 2 is the 5, and then 5 times 3 is 15. So this is a way that you're saying, it's easy for me to work with those numbers in my head, as long as I'm really just, focused on the formula. For doing the perimeter, you're just adding up the sides again. So we're saying that for perimeter, it's probably best to start in the same spot all the time, which I like to start at 12 o'clock and go this way, go clockwise. But they didn't do that. They're saying A is one base, B is another base, C is the side, and D is the other side. So they're going A, B, C, D to do the perimeter. Perimeter is very easy again because it's just adding it up. So it's going to be the fact that you just have to know, why are you using perimeter? So that is building a fence, doing a border, maybe painting a trim. So if you get a word problem, it's going to be that you have to understand, if they don't use the word area and they don't use the word perimeter, that you understand the definition of those two words so that you pick out the right formula. So now we have the median of a trapezoid, which is the middle. So it's saying that the median, also called the midline or mid-segment, is a line segment halfway between the two bases. The median's length is the average of the two base lengths. So the way that you're going to figure that out is you're just cutting the height in half. So what they have is A plus B divided by 2. And then they're using a different letter for median. And I'm not sure that you would even get something like this, but this is just going over everything in the shape. And then they're comparing it again to what they say in the UK. So taking a look at one of these, that's kind of a definition question. And here is one with actual numbers, right? So in a case like this, you're saying, calculate the perimeter. So you have to know which numbers to ignore again, because the perimeter is just the outside lines. So you should ignore the height in this one. You don't need the height for perimeter. Similarly, here's this same trapezoid, and they're asking for the area. So now you don't need the side length here or the side length here. You need the two bases, or half of the two bases, times the height. So the real thing is just being able to ignore some of the information that might be in your shape. And similarly, if you're going to find something that's missing, you're basically just relying on your algebra skills. So this is where you're going to leave the height in the formula, leave H in the formula and solve for H by undoing everything that's in the formula. So what I'm going to say is just to, try this one. We weren't able to go over it last week, but this, I have seen people get a trapezoid, garden or something like that on their test. They said, this is kind of one of the basic shapes. Like we said, a lot of people get the Pythagorean theorem. Some people get a trapezoid, it's pretty common. And then of course, the circle that we're gonna do next. So you might get something that's very, very, very easy, like just the square or the rectangle. but normally they're going to give you one of these other ones that maybe you didn't do so much in elementary school and junior high school. So let me see if anybody has any questions. So do you have any questions about trapezoid? The only thing I'm going to say is that I've seen the formula in a lot of different ways. So you're going to have to pick one and do it the same way all the time. Because again, like we're saying, you just probably have the 1 or 2 questions like that are in your geometry section. So when you see it, you want to have a trigger for what to remember. And it could be in the directions, right? So what you're looking for is understanding the base 1 and the base 2. If it's labeled like A and B, it's the same thing as if they say B with a little subscript 1, a tiny 1 at the bottom, and then B with a tiny 2. They're just trying to show you the difference between the 2 bases. And that's basically the definition of a trapezoid, is that one base is one length, the other base is another length. It's not a rectangle. It's not a square. So the bases are 2 different lengths. That's all that you really have to remember in case you see it some different kind of way on your directions, on your formula sheet, or something like that. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna put something to read on the Google Classroom. I'm gonna put a tracking sheet for this week as an assignment on the Google Classroom. If you don't need to do those things, because I know everyone has done different tests so far, you might not need to do every kind of assignment. That's why it's still important for you to do the tracking. So I'm putting probably, it's gonna look like maybe more than 3 hours now, if that makes sense. Because now there's gonna be something to read, something on there for science, something on there for math, but you're still just trying to do 3 hours. So this little Zoom class is like our unifier. I'm saying this is a 1 hour class for us, and you're doing whatever you want for the other 2 hours. Any questions about that? So please do the tracking sheet. If you show up to this, I'm giving you the 1 hour, but whatever you're actually doing, please put it on there so I can give you the rest of the credit. I'm gonna put up a section of like study jams and put some more stuff on Khan Academy for science. And then I'm gonna pick, I think, the New York Times things that overlap science, since a lot of the stuff that they're talking about is about this coronavirus. You might as well stick with human biology, viruses, and all that exciting stuff. That way you can kind of overlap it with your critical thinking reading for science. But if you took the science test already, I'm not forcing you to do science, right? It's better for you to just write another section of Aztec. Like I'm working on English grammar instead of the science. So that's why the tracking sheet is going to be important for what hours you're actually getting. The Google Classroom is just, I'm going to say it's like an online syllabus from now on. So if you're ever out, you can kind of try to come to that week, and that's where I'm going to keep loading all the things that we're doing. So